Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Astute Wheel. Provide valuable, goals-based advice using simple-to-use online client data collection tools, have values and goals discussions, conduct live modelling, produce file notes, strategy papers, SOAs, and automate compliance.
Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and we are finalising our 6-part series today on talking to all things about clients goals-based and values-based financial planning. So today we are sort of wrapping the series up, and we're looking at also that end of the review process, what happens next with clients, and also touching on the idea around transitioning clients who are not traditionally in the goals-based world over to a goals-based world. As always, kicking off our series, Naomi, welcome.
Thanks, Fraser. Good to be back.
Fantastic. Now, let's talk about you sort of mentioned some of the process previously with regards to existing clients and having those goals-based conversations and tracking. We went through the motivational side of all those sorts of things, but tell us about is there any other part of your review process that sort of with regards to the ongoing advice and the fact that we want these clients here for the long term?
Yeah, look, I think that, we're very structured, as I mentioned in the last episode, around how we actually approach that annual review process. And so from a business perspective, particularly now, with the ongoing fee disclosure obligations, you've got to have a very structured business model and very scalable business model, really, to be able to incorporate what's required to provide and deliver to the client on an ongoing basis.
Now, you mentioned structure being the key there for scale. How have you managed to do that? Because obviously scale is a very difficult thing when you want to make sure you've got happy clients, and that can often mean high touch. What are your thoughts on scaling for financial advice?
Yeah, look, it's about having the right tools in the business to be able to do that. So the back-end systems that you're utilising, and then the client engagement tools that you're using. I think that prior to the COVID pandemic breaking out last year, we'd implemented an online tool that we hadn't really kind of tapped into and hadn't really started rolling out. And then, of course, come March 2020, and we've moved to Zoom for all our meetings, and suddenly, this online tool that we had really only just started kind of utilising in the business suddenly became so much more valuable as a way to engage the clients and keep them on track.
Yeah, and how do clients that haven't been using an online tool in the past? Because some of the time, I have this belief that clients are what we trained them to be. And so often we say, clients don't want to change, or, they don't want, but that's just because we trained them a certain way this is how we provide our business, to our clients. And then now, as soon as we change something, it's scary because we now have to retrain our clients in a new way. Tell us about how you go about that process, or even put a process in place to then systematically get to every single client.
Yeah, look, it's not just the client. Sometimes we have to retrain the advisors as well. And, they can also...
The mindset.
Yeah. Well, they're so used to doing things a particular way, it can be challenging. And I think if you're technologically challenged and you're not particularly good at multitasking as well, it's a hard ask. So, again, look, as much as we have really structured processes and procedures in the practice and the way that we go about doing things, we also have flexibility because not everything works for every person. I'm not going to expect an 80 2-year-old client who doesn't get on the computer to suddenly Zoom with me and sit there and fill out an online survey or a form or what have you. No, that's not going to work. So we still maintain a level of flexibility within the business to accommodate different people's capabilities and ways of doing things.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, we're talking a lot about goals and values-based advice, and you mentioned your earlier in the series. We talked about your journey and obviously through family business and working with your dad, and then eventually being the succession plan for your dad. In the past, years and years ago, the idea around there was a lot of product-based, advice. Let's say there was a lot of, let's take risk insurance, for example. There's a lot of risk insurance advice. How do you then restructure the business and then bring those clients through a process where you go, okay, we're now doing sort of more goals-based financial planning and we're more holistic and we do these other things. What's the idea of, that's quite daunting for a lot of businesses to take let's say a book of business that aren't used to it and then transitioning it.
Yeah, look, we've had that experience in our business. We purchased a risk book a couple of years ago, solely risk-based clients. That's all they knew from their advisor. They had a great relationship with the advisor. And so that transfer of the good relationship from a risk perspective worked very well. And so now, how are we going about sort of broadening their concept of what an advisor can provide to them really starts with the annual review process for a risk-only client, and introducing over time and acknowledging that there are other things that we do. So when we send out an email to that client to say, look, your insurance policies are due for renewal and let's catch up and have a conversation. And by the way, we also do X, Y, and Z. When we took over that book of business, we opened the door to say that we do a lot more than just risk insurance. So it can be, some people can appreciate that and say, yeah, I want more than just a risk advisor in my life. And many of them also are like, no, I don't need that right now. I've got my stuff sorted elsewhere and I'm comfortable with where I'm at. So it's horses for courses, and it's really just a constant, I guess, providing a constant reminder to people that you can do a lot more than just the one thing. I think having introduced the Astute Wheel tool into our business has enabled those broader conversations a lot earlier, I think, than otherwise. And so we're talking through helping people sort of, set their goals and looking at their broader information. Where that goes from there is really up to the client, whether or not they want to pursue a broader relationship or not.
You mentioned this in the idea of visuals in one of the previous episodes. Is that a really important part of this?
To a degree. I'm not as familiar with that side of the tools in terms of, the modelling as I probably should be or would like to be. That's kind of the next phase for my own educational journey, is to utilise the tools available much more productively and effectively. But certainly, yeah, I think that when you can show somebody, well, hey, you're doing this and it might look like this if you tweak this, can absolutely help them to see the value of taking broader advice.
I love the way you call it an educational journey, because I think we're all on that at some point, and I don't think we should ever get off it, by the way. So this probably takes us back to really what we talked about in the first episode around some of that branding idea and messaging that you want out there. What do you guys do with that branding type stuff when it comes to, mentioning to existing clients? Are we, regular contact? Is there newsletters? Is there any other marketing or social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a monthly newsletter that goes out to our client base. We have a Facebook page and LinkedIn page for the businesses that we are posting on regularly and gaining some traction in those areas. And we've got marketing initiatives across a broad range of categories for particular client-specific oriented things that we're trying to achieve. And we also are now doing investment manager webinar interviews on a quarterly basis that we invite our clients to attend, and we record those and then they're available to our clients to listen into.
And tell us about the engagement of those webinars. As obviously, we find it hard to get people on to webinars all the time because I think from a professional context, we're always jumping on them and there's plenty available. But what about from a client point of view? They might not be, getting access to so much like we are. Tell us about the engagement in those webinars.
Yeah, look, I think to date the engagement hasn't been that high, but for us, this is all part of building our brand and building our brand within our client base and helping clients just to see that we are doing things that help them understand where they're investing. And that if they want to tap into it, then they can. And so I think over time we'll see more and more of our clients, when they get used to these regular quarterly emails coming through saying, we've got another webinar coming up, come and join us. But also people get to watch them after the event. So we'll send out the link to allow them to see that after the event's happened. And I'm not sure if we're tracking that engagement after the fact.
Yep. Now, of course, we've had you on these episodes talking with your advisor hat on, predominantly. If you put your licensee hat on, and when we talk about goals-based financial planning and looking at getting into clients' goals, hopes, dreams, aspirations, talk to us about how that is so important from a licensee point of view.
Yeah. Look, I think the licensee has so many obligations to ensure that the client's best interests are put ahead of everybody else. And so it is in our absolute interest as a licensee to ensure that whatever we put in place in the business and whoever we take on in the business truly at heart has the client's best interest first and foremost. And to that end, it really is about the goals and objectives and the values that a client has for their own lives that really come to the fore for us.
Fantastic. Naomi, thank you so much for being part of this series. I really appreciate it. And if somebody wants to continue to get hold of you, whether it be for licensing or continuing this conversation, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can call us on 1300 001312. They can go to our website, pws.net.au.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fraser.
And we're in the episode 6 now of this series. And welcome back, Craig.
Thanks, Fraser. Good to see you again.
Yes, and so we're talking about all things to do with the clients, a lot of their long-term, their ongoing clients, and all that, or they could be new existing clients that we need to transfer. But let's talk about long-term clients to start with. How important is it to long-term clients that you really are focusing on their goals?
Yeah, look, I think given the nature of a long-term relationship, like any relationship, a client and advisor relationship is going to change based on circumstances, that some that are beyond our control and some that are completely controllable. And so you need to be having those conversations about what in your life has changed now, and does that have repercussions to some of the goals that you've got for the future. And having that really regular update and the understanding that one or the other review, depending on which end of the spectrum it changes from. Like if it's legislative changes, our clients expect us to get to them and explain how that affects them, and whether that's, whether that means goals are now no longer achievable or whatever it might be. And then if something in their life changes, where we expect them really to come back to us and say, okay, well, this is what's changed. How does that affect things? Or this has already affected my goal.
Yep, and that's the rules of the relationship, right? You're the planner, you're the advisor. Your job is to do this, and I will do that, and I can demonstrate that I'm doing that. But you're the client. Your job is to do this, this, and this, and you also need to demonstrate you're doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Now, talk to us about new clients, because sometimes we, you've been in the industry, as long as I have. It's been, we come from a place where in the past product-based advice might have been the norm, and so then when really getting into a goals-based advice world, sometimes there is teaching some new ways of doing things.
Yeah, it's interesting when the conversations that you have around goals with clients that have been maybe previously advised 10 years ago or something, and then you bring them in through the new really goals-based process, their eyes light up. They can't believe how different the experience is to what it was. That they're actually having conversations that they feel are really going to help them, that somebody's helped articulate their goals probably maybe not better than they can, but just in ways they hadn't thought about, and ask them the questions that maybe they haven't thought about to refine those goals and work out which are conflicting, and obviously the regular update of that, and teaching them the importance that, like if this thing changes, you need to contact me. We'll contact you if the next big changes. It's really that training people. Once again, I think I said in one of the early ones, this is how we do things. And it's not this is how we do things because that makes my life easier. It's this is how we do things because it's going to make our relationship better and it much more easy to achieve your goals.
Yep. It can be a daunting task, though, for some advisors to then introduce a new process like this. You mentioned that, you've had a positive response and people talking about this being the, best meeting ever, et cetera, et cetera. How did you get over that initial fear, I guess, of introducing a new system or how can advisors sort of get themselves over a fear of introducing a new system to an existing relationship?
Yeah, we actually started introducing that stuff with existing kind of longer term clients where, I've definitely got some clients or had some clients in my client list that were really very product driven type of clients, and that was the extent of the relationship we had in the past. Introducing them to the goals based stuff, I really just did it in their annual review. So we've always done annual reviews with clients. They just probably weren't as in depth as they have been for maybe the last 5 or 6 years. And what I started talking to them about was just, look, the goals that we've got on file for you and are different to the ones that you and I have spoken about. So I've written down all the stuff that we've discussed that isn't in relation to, diversification or whatever it might be from a portfolio perspective. And that's really the way I started. I went back and looked through some of the file notes that I had made from meetings with clients and actually identified goals that we'd never sat in front of them and really told them that, this is a goal, and extrapolated it out in any kind of noted format, I suppose. I knew what they were, they knew what they were, but they weren't really written anywhere, and they weren't reviewed very well. Yep. So that was the starting point for me. So it was actually going back through a couple of the files at review time and actually putting down what I thought their goals were and going over them with the client and clarifying them, I suppose, as if they were a new client in that regard, and just having that conversation to say, look, these are the goals. What's changed? These are some of these things might have dated back in the file notes to 3 or 4 years ago. Is that still a priority, or is this new thing a much bigger priority now?
So this meeting, I'm just trying this on for somebody out there. There might be in this situation where they're trying to do this. This meeting could be that you then you go back through your file notes, you write some notes and say, I think these are your goals from what we've been talking about, but we now have we do this discovery meeting where we can actually get to the bottom of this. Do you want to book one in, or do you try and do it at the review?
I do it at the review, but I explain to them that that's going to be part of the review this year. So I explain that it's not going to be the same type of review. We're going to delve much more into their goals and objectives, which is a little bit daunting for some of them to begin with, but because you've generally already got a rapport with these guys, it flows quite well. I actually found that was a really good way to practice, refine my goals skills on existing clients where you've already got that rapport as opposed to a brand new client.
Yep. Now, you mentioned it could be daunting. I guess it's one of those things that on the other end of that, they could just say, well, how long have you been doing this? Why didn't you bring me this earlier as well?
Yeah, that's right, I suppose. Look, generally there was always an element for us of their goals. It just wasn't as defined a process, I suppose. So that's really the answer to that is, look, I've taken some classes on doing this better.
Yep.
Clients are happy to hear that you're bettering your education and upping your skills. That's not a detriment to them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, we used to do it this way, but we think there's a better way, so we're going to explore that.
Exactly.
Yep. Well, Craig, thank you for coming on the series. Really appreciate you putting your hand up and offering all that information over the series. If someone wanted to continue the conversation with you, what's the best way that they can get hold of you?
Oh, good question. Probably checking me out on LinkedIn, I suppose, would be the easiest way.
Yep, fantastic, and shoot your message. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Fraser.
Welcome back, Kate, to this episode, our final episode in our 6-part series on all things values and goals-based advice. And in this episode, we're talking about the review process. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Fraser.
Now, tell us about some of the work, the great work you're doing with the advisors around this review process and cementing this ongoing relationship with the client.
Yeah, so as part of incorporating the values in terms of the review process or the annual review process, or even as part of the discovery process, it is very much around that pre-positioning and transition, from what's typically been will come from sort of product to strategic to goals-based advice. This is the next level or the next step in that process, which is just adding the values onto the goal and anchoring it a little bit deeper. So I guess for advisors that are feeling concerned or not really sure where to start, it's just in terms of the branding and the marketing and the conversations, I'd be incorporating it into their existing process. It's not a separate one. It's just incorporating it into the discovery meeting pack and confirming the meeting there, or at the annual progress meeting when they're sending out the details for the clients to check. And the simple conversation is that it's actually we've been the guardian of your money. We've taken good care of you in terms of that. We obviously look out to take care of your family, and understand you and what's important to you. As part of that process, it's kind of formalizing it a little bit more so that we can actually measure it, is we're introducing the values-based conversation. Now, we've potentially been having this conversation because they would have been, like they may not have known that they haven't necessarily gone through and identified the top 5 values, but a lot of the key drivers and how we're making our decisions is based off the client's values. And so this is just formalizing the process. It's not necessarily big and scary. It's actually really exciting and very meaningful for the client. And it's really helpful. Like I'd almost be linking it into this environment that we're in, which is that really, the VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And this is just another layer of being able to help clients know more about themselves than they ever have before. And as a financial partner, for them to be able to help anchor their goals and based advice to those lovely values that actually make it really, really congruent with each other. Yeah, in alignment.
Fantastic. Now you mentioned the word helpful, which I think is a motivator for a lot of advisors. I think a lot of advisors I speak to got into the business because they wanted to help people. So it's certainly a great way to think about that, what you're doing with regards to values-based advice. Now, I'm going to get into that part in a minute where we'll go a bit deeper on the idea of, retraining clients that were previously we've trained to do one way into a new system. But before we do that, you mentioned the word progress meeting. And we sort of use this word review meeting and progress meeting interchangeably, but I think that's really important language because, review sort of thinks, I think of the past. You're looking at past events, which are out of our control, really, aren't they? We sort of look at the past and we can't really control that. But progress towards is a towards motivation, and it's something that we can control.
100%. That's why I prefer to see advisors call it the annual progress meeting or whatever, however their frequency, just the progress. It's that check-in point. It's back to that, are we ahead, are we behind conversation. And it just allows you to be able to look at what is completely within their control in terms of, their spending's within their control. You can't control the market, can't control the up and down, but you absolutely can control your spending. And, the things around that. So being able to have that broader conversation around it as a progress, how we're progressing and tracking to our goals that we set out about from last year, and how that, is showing up in terms of our cash flow, our debt, our superannuation, our investment. It's such a valuable conversation as opposed to review. For me, just kind of reminds me of, just the review of a superannuation product or an investment, just has a different connotation to it. So that I would definitely make that annual progress meeting as opposed to annual review, even though you are reviewing the superannuation and performance, like it's all part of it. But yeah, just that mindset shift for your clients.
Yeah, exactly right. I think review to me means exactly the same thing. It sort of talks about past, and I really like the idea of progress. I think it really empowers clients to be in control of their future and understand that they do have control. It's certainly one of those major drivers in people's lives.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me about the retraining, because this is, sometimes people have been in a process, they've done it the similar way, and then, of course, there's been a lot of, they're introducing a new system. Some people have that limiting belief inside their own head where their clients might be thinking a particular thing, which is sounds weird, but we all sort of fear that in a way, fear of being judged.
Yeah, 100%. I guess the first thing I would say is to advisors, you need to go through the process yourself, right? In order to be able to speak with conviction, go through the process, like have somebody do it on you. I'm more than welcome to do it with me if they want to, but just definitely do it. You have to go through that. And your team, like it's just so valuable because you can then speak with conviction about the experience. You then know it. It's like when I say to all financial planners that all your staff members should all go through your advice, because then they can speak with conviction about the entire process. They know it beginning to end, and they can tell the clients about that experience, right? So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, you don't need any more skills than you have. You are a financial planner because you're wanting to help people, and you are obviously good listeners, yeah? And you are great at working out what goals are. This is not a difficult process at all. You, like I've said on a few of the other podcasts, you just need to care, and you just need to create a safe space to be able to hold the client in that, so that if they're vulnerable, they can be in a space that's non-judge, and they can be vulnerable about what their personal, values are. The other thing I would say is you don't need to overcomplicate it. As I said, there's fabulous systems and things like that there, but you can just have a simple little one-pager, front and back, like a grid with the values on it, and then the value scorecard on the back that you could just slip in as part of your discovery process or your annual progress meeting, right? So these are the things that most people would be like, I'm feeling anxious because it's a whole big new thing. It's not. It's just a little addition to something that's going to make a really big difference to your business.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Kate. Now, if people want to talk to you or get hold of you around how you can help them with finding their values, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, I have a website, inspirationcafe.com.au, or Kate with a C at inspirationcafe.com.au.
Inspiration Cafe, fantastic. Thank you, Kate, for coming and sharing your wisdom with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Fraser. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Tim Henry, welcome back to this episode, our final episode in this 6-part series, all around goals-based advice, values-based advice, as you call it, life planning.
Yep.
We're into the part where we start talking about the review process, the progress meeting, and really looking at the idea around also on top of this, the idea of getting new clients, teaching clients new tricks, or whatever you want to call it, that may not be used to a process. Tell us about your review process.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start with something. Hopefully, it's not controversial, but we've banned the word review because
Nice.
It is backward looking, just by the nature or the definition of the word. And again, going back right to the start in the first session we had chatting about this, Fraser, it's about how do we want people to feel about what's coming and building momentum in their future world. So we stopped calling it the review meeting because who really wants to go back and look at what happened? I want to know what's coming. And so we changed the name of that to Game Changer Meeting. So we want to change up the game or maybe we don't need to change too much. But game changer has become a bit of a buzzword, so it's become a bit so-so, that the word game changer, but we've moved away from the word review. So what does it mean for us? Well, I think for us it's about we've built a modularized approach here, which we have attached the financial components to that meeting, and we've got that we call that the game changer packages. But again, with that process, we start with that review, if you like, on, or here's the goals that we had on you. Are these still up to date? Has anything changed? And when they walk into the room, the beauty of the systems we're using now and technology, we probably used to spend the first 15 minutes of every meeting in the past, or half an hour updating data. We've already got a prepared report for the future when they walk in. And then we might modify that after the meeting based on some other conversations that happen in there. So what we're wanting is for them to walk out with that huge progress report on, where I'm headed and where I am in the journey.
Yeah, fantastic. So you're sending out a survey, fact find, goals report to start with before the meeting, getting them to update and then come into the meeting. And with that review meeting, are you booking that in the same way as you did with the new business meeting, where you the discovery meeting, where they get a few options?
Yeah, so that we book it in exactly the same way, or they might actually do it with one of our staff members just searching for a date, or they might just book in through Calendly. But they get the same links as what a new client gets, because it's all the same stuff. The only difference being, with a new client, we're sending out a blank fact find. We've got an existing client, we're sending out the existing data we have on them. The great thing as well is that anyone that's using our My Prosperity portal, we've got live data anyway, so we've already updated that. And in the main, they're fine-tuning their data rather than having to put a lot of stuff. And what we've learnt through this process and building it's a pretty cool report, I have to say. We moved away from SOA generating software, and we decided we were going to invest in software that was going to give an awesome experience for this annual meeting. And as clients have experienced that, the quality of the data they send us back now has lifted, because it's like, we want the data to be really up to date, because we're going to get this cool report at the end of it and we're going to feel like we're nailing it. So where it used to just be some boring pages that they'd get, they're probably not that invested in sending it the info.
Yeah, fantastic. Very much around the client experience. I love it. Tell us about conversations that you might have had, or if somebody's going through the scenario where they trying to introduce a process like this, like yours, to clients that are used to another thing. They're used to maybe just a product-based advice, or getting something, a different type of review meeting, looking back, and now we're introducing something that's very different.
I think with any changes that you bring into your business like this, I've found the biggest hurdle is your existing clients. So it's like, how do we change them? So I've found the easiest way is to just introduce it and start using it with new clients. They don't know any different. And then as a secondary step, it's like, well, how are we going to now push? Is that a bad word?
Probably.
Encourage.
Introduce. Yeah.
Encourage in a way that leaves no other options. The brutal reality of efficiency is, the days of saying we'd really like you to do this are gone. I hate to say it, but it's like, this is the way we do this meeting now. So if you don't do it this way, you can't get the best value out of us, and we're probably headed to a point in time where we'll say goodbye. I think we have to be like that. And so I would not get too bogged down in how are you going to get people to do it. You first got to get the system and the vision for what you want it to look like and how you want people to feel. And then, I often say this, that clients' commitment to whatever you're trying to implement is always going to be marginally less than your commitment. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, yeah, I've tried this system, but our clients didn't really go on it. And it's like, well, I can tell you're not even really that committed, so why would they be? So you've got to really go in with full commitment, and your clients will follow, I reckon.
Yeah, certainly right. It's sort of your attitude rubs off on them.
And you say, well, this is the way we're doing it, and this is why, because it's going to deliver this. We're doing it to improve our service to you. Don't just introduce the service and say, this is a new process. Explain why. We really want to improve this because we think we can give you better outcomes and better visuals, or we're embedding this new software because it's going to be much better for our communication with you. Who wouldn't have a crack then? They're going to go, okay, well, he seems like he's working really hard for me. I should step up to the plate and help him.
And this feels to me like it's a cultural thing too. It's not just the advisor, it's the whole practice that has to come along.
Yeah, well, I think they have to, but I think that they would as well, because most of what we're introducing here should be making their job easier too. Engaging with the clients is easier, getting information's easier. If they're inputting data into a system that sucks into the system virtually, we're not printing, we're not scanning. There's all these knock-on effects that we're not doing in a business anymore. So, yeah, there's a little bit of initial resistance sometimes, but if it's for the greater good, it's good for everyone. The classic case is, we use the My Prosperity portal, and getting some older clients on that has been a challenge. But and once we had got them signing things digitally on there, and they don't have to print and scan it and all that sort of thing, they're like, sign me up, because they've all got iPads. They love it. So It's just breaking through those initial barriers sometimes.
Yeah, fantastic, Tim. Thanks for coming on and sharing your processes throughout the journey of this this last 6-part series. Fantastic to have you. Someone who wants to continue the conversation, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, they can just email me, tim@aspireplanning.com.au, or go onto our website, aspireplanning.com.au, and just send a link through the contact page there, and we'll have a chat.
Fantastic. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
See you, mate.
Welcome back, Michael, to this episode where we're talking all things goals-based, values-based financial planning, financial advice. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Razor. Looking forward to it.
Now, this episode, we're talking really around the idea of the annual review process, although I love to call it the progress meeting.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it should be. Financial plans aren't set and forget. In fact, if you did some modeling in 87 and then met with a client in 88, you'd have completely different results because of what happened in the market. So a plan is a plan, and you put it in place, but it needs changes all the way along.
Yep. And so how important is it for an ongoing relationship? How important is goals-based advice, I think, for the ongoing relationship-based advice?
I think it's exceptionally important. So if you can help your client get their head around their values and their goals, and you can help them achieve those goals without violating their values, you can add real value to the client and the relationship, and they will be clients for life.
Yep. And talk to me about the concept of progress versus review. I think sort of feels a bit more like you're focusing on their goals and just reviewing their products.
Yeah, I think a review of products has become less valuable to clients. For an advisor to build a document for me to show me what my super balance is and what my bank balances are and all that kind of stuff has got literally no value to me, because I've got that all on my phone, directly with the bank, directly with the insurer, directly with the super company. So you've got to be able to spend time on things that are important to the client, and having their goals and when they want to achieve them and how they're going, and if they're getting behind on their goals, how to get back on track to achieve their goals is what they'll find important. And adding some documentation behind that, because you have to from a compliance point of view, of here's your super balance opening and closing, here's the money that went in, here's the money that went out, and this is the parts that grew, is important. But you can produce a report and send it to the client. And we're finding quite a few advisors are actually sending those out to clients automatically. So rather than that being part of a review meeting, it's sent out at the 6-month mark or 3 months before the meeting to go, here's how your investments and your super's going. And an advisor can't control the markets, so they can't control what the super does, and they can't control the investments. So that's good information for a client and it's part of where they're heading, but it's not the strategy. What's important to the client and the advisor are what are the strategies and how do we make sure you achieve those goals?
Yeah, I feel like a big part of goals-based advice and how advisors work with clients is around that accountability, helping clients create new habits. And you just mentioned there who can control what in the scenario, and helping the clients stay focused on what they can control, which is generally their behaviours, what they earn, what they spend.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. If it's going to be ongoing service agreements, annual agreements, just a service agreement, so you're not saying a word like annual or anything like that in it, but it's got to be pretty clear in those agreements with the client is that there's some things we have to do for you and there's some things you have to do. And the kinds of things that you have to do is you need to come in for a review at least once a year or twice a year, whatever the case may be on that package. You need to fill in some documentation for us, 5-minute health checks and changes questionnaires or electronic reverse fact finds and whatever else it is. And if you've got some goals, that's great. And to achieve these goals, here's a list of things you have to do. And here's a list of things we have to do. And let's get together each year to make sure that you've done your bits because you're an adult and you're a client and we're here to help you, but we're not here to babysit you. And here's some things that we have to do. And hopefully we can tick off all the things we said we would do so that you're not giving clients money back.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, the double accountability scale. We're here to do this thing, but you're here to do that thing. And so we're all here to keep each other accountable to make it actually work.
Exactly. And, things change every year and you expect them to. And legislation changes that could impact the client's goals. Market conditions change that could impact their goals. The client's own circumstances can impact the client's goals. And so the first two are out of their control, legislation and market conditions. And in their own circumstances, some things are in their control and some things are out of their control, like getting made redundant or whatever. So every year, that's at a minimum that you need to look at. And any of those things can affect all 6 areas of advice. And it could have a big impact on their advice and whether an ROA or an SOA needs to be produced. That's the outcome. But the key thing is to have the meeting, go through all of those things, work out the impacts, change goals and modify them if you need to. See if their values have changed or not, because people's values change over time, and so they should. And have a great meeting where the client walks out going, wow, that was awesome.
Yep, love it. Now, speaking of awesome meetings, let's talk about introducing new goals-based advice world if it's new to a practice. To existing clients that may not necessarily be used to that and may have a certain expectation in place as to what their advisor does for them.
Yeah. The thing that's always interesting with software is we've said to advisors, just be open with a client. Bob, we've got some new software. We're trying to get our head around it. You've been a great client of ours for a number of years now. We'd like you to just follow the steps and give us feedback so we can see whether we like this tool and how that's going to affect other people. So you get the client on side with you. And so filling in a 5-minute financial health check is foreign to them, but it's pretty simple. Doing an electronic reverse fact find, pretty straightforward. And if they haven't done their goals before, then to send out the link to the goals tool and say, one of the things we found, Bob, is that it's really powerful when we've helped our other clients come up with what their goals are. We've used this system now for a year or a couple of years. We've been helping clients set goals. They've been achieving them. We've been modifying them at our meetings. Clients love it. And it's time that we did this with you. And here's some pointers on what you need to do. But when you come in for the meeting or when we catch up on Zoom, we'll go through it with you and we'll make those goals more robust and work out the pecking order of them and make sure that you understand them, and so do we. And we can make sure we can kick those goals with you.
Hey, that's a really good tip. I love what you said then about the idea of just being honest and upfront and vulnerable to a degree as well, and just saying, setting the expectations as is, like this is not perfect. It reminded me of a conversation I had with somebody years and years ago that said that one of their best things that they learned when it came into conversations with people was their words, "Can you do me a favor?" Can you do, I'm doing this thing. It's new. Look. To be honest with you, we've had some good feedback, but I'm still, I still want to know can you do me the expectation is this? Can you do me a favor and help me et cetera, et cetera. That sounds like a great way to start a conversation about it.
Yeah, and one of our advisors a few years ago, when he started using our software, he used it as a guinea pig on his top 20 clients. Now, most people are going to start with their 100th client, and so if they screw it up, it doesn't matter too much. But he started with his top 20 clients, and his discussion with them was, I've got some new software. We've known each other for the last 10 years. We've come to assume things about you. You've come to assume things about us. Let's just stop assuming and start from scratch, and let's have a look at what your financial world looks like, how happy you are with a 5-minute health check, and then let's get together and have a discussion. And they became very powerful conversations that he had with his clients. And, with some of them, he actually found out that I think one particular client had $2 million that he didn't know about, the advisor didn't know about. And when he asked the client, because they'd filled in an about you questionnaire and said, I didn't know you had this money. And the client said, well, you charge me 1% of assets under management, so I've been looking after this $2 million myself. That was, let's stop assuming about each other. I assumed I knew all the money you had, but he didn't. And just starting from scratch and starting with goals and values and things like that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of putting it too. I quite like that. Let's stop assuming because, and you're right, like we've been knowing each other for a long time, and there's probably all sorts of things that haven't been said during the conversation that let's make a time, a safe spot, a safe place to bring all those conversations out.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining us in this series. Really appreciate it. How do people get hold of you and check out more of what you're up to?
So the best way is just to go to our website, so astutewheel.com.au. There's a lot of information on the website. There is also a book demo. So once a week, we run a live demonstration for 90 minutes. We typically say if you're a practice that's got one or more principles, all watch it together. So attend one of the webinars together. Have a good look at what the system does and see whether you think it fits your business. Make a decision as a joint decision, because one advisor watching it now trying to explain it to the other two advisors is going to struggle. So watch it together. Bring your lunch in, sit in the boardroom or on Zoom, have a look at it. If you like what it looks like, contact us and we take the next steps from there. All our phone numbers are there as well, so just give us a call. Happy to have a discussion, do a 5-minute, this is what Astute Wheel's about. But if you're serious, have a look at the live demo and it'll give you all the information you need.
Fantastic. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Razor. Thanks very much. Bye.